I was supposed to be in and out in 10 minutes. I had a lunch break, a crumpled receipt in my pocket, and a small question about a fee that showed up on our account. I took a number, stood under the ceiling fan, and watched a man argue about coins at the teller window. The branch smelled like paper and lemon cleaner. I checked the time. I had 22 minutes left. When it was my turn, I slid the receipt under the glass and said I thought we were double charged. The teller typed, held a breath, and asked my name. I told her. She paused, glanced at her screen, then asked if I wanted to verify something on our refinance file. I said, "What refinance file?" She blinked in a polite way. "The one from March." I told her I hadn't refinanced anything. She looked down again. "One moment, Mr. Carter." She disappeared into a side office and returned with a man in a tie. He had a folder. He suggested we step into a small room with a glass wall and a fake plant. He set the folder down like it was fragile and turned it toward me. There was a copy of my driver's license, my social security number, our address, and a signature that looked exactly like mine. It wasn't a trace. It had the pressure where I always push too hard on the last letter. It had the small break in the loop. It had my hesitation, my bad habit, my hand. He tapped the page. "Is that your signature?" I stared. I could feel the air get thin in my chest. "It looks like it," I said, "but I didn't sign it." He kept his voice calm. "Sometimes a spouse signs for—" "No, we don't do that." He nodded and kept the same tone. "Okay, then let me print a copy of the file. You can review it." He left the room. The glass made everything look farther away. The teller looked past me, not at me. I could hear the fan, the soft beeps from a card reader. He came back with a thin stack of paper. He slid it to me and sat down. The loan number had our street in it. The date was March 17th. There was a deposit verification page with a stamp. There was a notary page with a round seal and a name I didn't know. I pointed at the seal. "Who is that?" "Our notary," he said. "Marissa Grant." I repeated the name. It tasted like a fake thing when I said it out loud. He watched my eyes. "If you believe this is inaccurate," he said, "you can file a dispute. I can give you the form." I didn't answer. I was still looking at my signature. It was mine. It was not mine. He folded his hands. "Are you feeling okay, Mr. Carter?" I said yes. It sounded like a lie. He stood. "I'll get you the dispute form." I folded the copy and put it in my jacket. I didn't wait for the form. My feet moved on their own. I left the room, the branch, the smell of lemon cleaner, and walked straight into the parking lot. The sun hit me in the face. I stood there for a full minute without moving. I had 12 minutes left on my lunch break. I drove back to work and sat in the car with the engine off. I opened the copy and held the page against the steering wheel. The curve of the J, the short tail on the R. The pressure point at the end where the ink digs into the paper. I'd know it in my sleep. I checked my phone calendar. March 17th. There was an entry. Porch brackets. I had picked up hardware that day, went home and drilled holes too close to the edge. I could see it in my memory, the sawdust on the mat. The drill slipping, the curse I said when the screw stripped. Nothing about a loan. I put the papers back, drove to the loading dock, and went inside. My crew was stacking pallets with a forklift. The warehouse had its own air. Dust, oil, coffee. My co-worker Pete shouted over the noise, asked if I was okay. I said fine. My voice was wrong. When my shift ended, I drove home slow. The mailbox had a heavy envelope. Same logo, same black letters. Notice of secondary mortgage default. I walked in. Sarah was at the sink. The envelope was already on the table, opened. She didn't look at me. She reached for a towel like she'd been waiting to say something and had run out of things to do with her hands. "Tell me you didn't do something dumb," she said, not angry, just scared. I didn't sign anything. She looked at me then. But they have your signature. I saw it, I said. She wiped the counter with a dry towel. It didn't need wiping. How much is it? I read the letter again. 118,000? Her voice thinned on the last sound. Yes, she sat down. Jack. I didn't sign anything, I said again. I sounded like a broken thing. I didn't. She nodded like she heard me, but her eyes moved to the window. The maple was in the yard, the one we almost cut down and decided to keep. It threw shade on the kitchen. That shade felt colder than usual. We didn't fight. There was nothing to fight. There was only a question that sat between us like a third person at the table. That night, after she went to the bedroom, I put the papers down and took a magnifying glass from the junk drawer. I don't know why we even owned it. I held it over the signature and traced the line with my eyes. My hand does a small pause in the middle of the last name. The fake one had it, but the pressure was different. The heavy spots were a hair off. If I had to say it, I'd say someone learned my hand by watching a poor copy and wrote with more weight. Or maybe I wanted to see a difference because I needed one. I pulled out our file from the cabinet, our original loan, our closing papers. The old copy of my ID from a time when I wore a beard and looked tired in every picture. I lined them up on the table under the light. I noticed a small thing. The old driver's license scan had a reflection line down the side, a light strip from a cheap scanner. The copy in the refinance file had that same strip, same angle, same little dust speck. It wasn't a new copy. It was an old scan reused. I locked onto that. My heart slowed in a strange way. If they used an old scan, they didn't get it from the state. They got it from somewhere close, from someone who had handled our papers. 6 months earlier, we had done the basement, new drywall, floor, outlets. The contractor had asked for the property file for permits. I had handed him a folder because it was easier than making copies. He took a photo of my ID on his phone. He asked if he could drop it off tomorrow. He brought the folder back, but not the USB drive I gave him with scans. I remember I didn't ask about the USB because I didn't need it for anything right then. I remember he said, "I'll swing it by next week." He didn't. I stood up and walked to the counter where we keep the drawer with manuals and dead pens. I pulled the old invoice out from the basement job. The name was simple. The email was a generic address. At the bottom was the bank info for deposits. It ended in 4 numbers. 4098. I said the numbers out loud, softly, like I was trying to hear if they meant something. I sat down again and went through my email. I searched his name. I found the thread about the electrical permit. He had asked for a scan of my ID to upload to the permit portal. I had sent it. The attachment name was Jack I'd Scan Old.jpg. I stared at that name and felt like I'd swallowed ice. I replied to that thread even though it was 6 months cold. It bounced. The account was gone. I found an old text. "Hey Rick, do you still have my USB?" There was no reply in the history, just my message and the time. I looked up his business online. The website had a holding page. The phone number on the contact section was marked disconnected by the automatic voice when I called. There are moments that are loud without any sound. The house was quiet and I could hear the refrigerator click and the pipes settle. That silence made me angry, but not the kind that shouts, the kind that makes a plan. At 10 the next morning, I called the loan department and asked for the notary's license number. The rep hesitated. I kept my voice even. I said I was checking authenticity. She read a number. I wrote it down, repeated it back. I looked it up on the state site. No match. Not even close. I called the bank again and asked for a scan of the notary page. They sent it. The round seal was clean, too clean. The edges were soft, like a photo of a stamp, not a stamp itself. I zoomed in and saw pixels bend in a square around it. Whoever placed it didn't feather the edges enough. That was the first thing that made me feel less crazy. I took the page to a small legal office near the post office. The woman at the front desk had a stack of file folders and a rubber band around her wrist. I asked in a plain voice if the notary seal looked right. She took one look and shook her head. "This is a picture of a seal," she said. "Not a seal." "Can I get that in writing?" I asked. She nodded, typed 2 sentences, printed them on letterhead, and stamped it with her own seal. She slid it across the counter. "How much?" She waved her hand. "Don't worry about it." I thanked her. It took 4 minutes. I walked straight to the post office and mailed a dispute letter to the address on the notice. I paid extra for the green card. I wanted a signature. I wanted a real one. At lunch, I tried to eat a sandwich and ended up putting it back in the bag. My phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't know. I answered. A man's voice. Calm. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes." "You've been asking questions about your file." "Who is this?" A small pause. I could hear a television in the background low. "Someone who's trying to save you time." "What does that mean?" "It means maybe don't do that." The line clicked. The call ended. No threat, just the message. I looked at my phone for a while like it was a thing I hadn't seen before. Then I turned it face down and sat with my hands flat on the table. The wood had a scratch near my left palm. I stared at the scratch until my eyes went out of focus. That night, Sarah waited until the dishes were done. She sat at the table across from me. "I called my brother," she said. "He doesn't handle this kind of thing, but he said people get caught in messes like this when they panic." "I'm not panicking." "I know," she said, "but I need you not to make it worse." "I won't." She reached across and touched the corner of the paper stack, not me. "I want to believe you," she said. "I do, it's just—" "I know," I said. "I know what it looks like." We sat there with the quiet between us. I told her about the notary seal. I told her about the old scan with the light strip. I told her about the numbers on the contractor's invoice. I didn't tell her about the phone call. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to put that voice in the room with us. She nodded at the pieces that made sense. "So what do we do?" "We build a file bigger than theirs," I said, "and we don't talk on the phone anymore." The next morning, I created a new email account that didn't have my name in it. I copied the fake notary page and added a small mark down in the corner, a dot that would show up if anyone reused my copy. I made a second version of our address with a single letter swapped in the street name. Someone lazy would not notice. Someone lazy would paste it into a form. I scanned the original envelope with the barcode. I made a timeline. Dates, times, who said what, who printed what. I printed every page and put them in a binder. The binder had a crack in the plastic cover where it bent. I liked that it looked used. I called an independent document specialist. I said I wanted a simple authenticity check on a notary seal. No story, just the request. She gave me a day and a time. I took the afternoon off and drove there. She wore glasses with a scratch on the left lens. She looked at the page for 5 seconds and said, "No." Then she explained the spacing in the seal borders, the font mismatch in the name, the way real ink bleeds into paper fibers and the way this one didn't. She wrote a short note with bullet points and signed it. I left with it in a clear plastic sleeve. 2 days later, the envelope with the green card came back from the bank. Someone had signed for my dispute. The signature was a scribble with a loop. I slid it into the binder behind the timeline. At work, Pete asked if I was dealing with a sick parent. I said no. He nodded like he understood anyway. He told me a joke about a broken forklift. I laughed in the right place but couldn't repeat the joke after. On Friday, I left a message with the bank's general line asking for the notary's license again, as if I didn't already have the number that didn't exist. They didn't call back. Sunday morning, I printed a clean copy of our original loan, our closing disclosures, and our first mortgage payment receipt. I set them next to the refinance pages. I put a sticky note on each with one word: real, fake, real, fake. I wasn't doing it for a judge. I was doing it for my own head. I wanted the line between the two stacks to look obvious, even if it wasn't. That afternoon, when Sarah went to visit her mother, I wrote an email to the contractor's old address and copied a new one I found on a trade board. Subject line: fence quote. The body was short. Thinking about replacing the side run. Same address as before. Can you stop by this week? I read it 3 times. I hit send. I didn't know if he'd write back. I didn't know if he'd even see it. I didn't know if he was the person behind this or just the loose board everything else had nailed itself to. At 9 that night, my phone buzzed. New message, different address, same name. Hey Jack, long time. I can swing by Wednesday morning? Still the maple in the front yard? I stared at that line. Still the maple. Yes, still the maple. Wednesday works, I wrote. 9? Perfect, he wrote. I'll bring the estimate sheet. If you have the old property info handy, that helps. I wrote back, sure, I'll print it. I put the phone down and went to the drawer with our blank paper. I took out a clean sheet and typed our address with a single wrong letter in the street name. I added the parcel number. I added the small dot in the corner I had used on the notary page. I printed it and slid it into a manila folder with nothing else inside. I stood in the kitchen with the folder in my hand and listened to the house again. No TV, no dishwasher. Just the steady, tiny sounds a place makes when it's holding you up. I put the folder on the table and went to bed. Sleep didn't come fast. When it did, it was thin. I dreamed I was signing my name and the pen kept carving into the table and I couldn't lift it. When I woke, my hand was in a fist. Wednesday 9. I watched the clock. At 8:50, a truck idled at the curb. I saw the shape through the glass. He got out and looked the same. Same boots, same confident step, same lazy smile like every job was already done. Jack, he said at the door like we were old friends. Rick, I said. He looked past me into the hallway like he was measuring it. He held up a clipboard. Side run, he said. I'll keep it quick. Sure, I said. I've got the parcel info if you need it. He smiled. Makes my day easier. I handed him the folder. He didn't open it yet. He walked the side yard, tapped the posts with the back of his knuckles, made small sounds like a doctor listening to a chest. He scribbled squares on the estimate sheet and squinted at the ground. He came back to the porch and set the clipboard on the rail. He finally opened the folder and glanced at the page. Still the same parcel, he said, not really reading. He was used to people handing him things he didn't have to look at. He wrote a number and then, like a reflex, wrote his bank info for deposit at the bottom of the estimate. I saw the last 4 digits without trying to. 4098. He tore the yellow copy off the pad and handed it to me. I'll email the formal quote. Same email? I asked. Yeah, he said. He tapped the side of his head with the pen. I've got you in here. He left with a wave like he'd done me a favor. His truck pulled away. I didn't move until I couldn't hear it. I looked down at the estimate again. The numbers were ordinary. The bank digits were not. The page in the folder had the wrong letter in the street name. I waited to see where it would show up next. I put the yellow copy in the binder under a new tab I labeled with his last name. I stood still for a while and let the quiet come back. Then I closed the binder and slid it to the center of the table like a chess piece I finally understood. I was done. The next move wasn't loud. It was a dot in a corner and a wrong letter that would tell me everything I needed to know. Rick's truck disappeared down the street and I stood there listening to the air settle. It was too quiet for a man who just handed his name to someone who might have stolen his life. I waited another minute, then walked back inside. The house felt different, like every window was watching me. I made coffee I didn't drink. At the table, the folder sat where I left it. I opened it and took a photo of the wrong letter address before closing it again. I time-stamped the photo. It felt important, a way to prove when my bait went out. Then I went to work. All day I checked my phone every hour, pretending to look at shipping logs. By 3, an email arrived. Subject, fence estimate from Rick Donnelly. Attachment, Carter Property Form.pdf. He'd sent back my own document, the fake address still inside. I didn't open it at work. I just sat there and looked at the email header. The timestamp said 2:14 p.m. The IP address in the metadata showed up as Logan OH, not far from where he used to live. I forwarded it to my new email account, the clean one. Then I deleted it from my work inbox and cleared the trash. That night, Sarah made dinner and asked if I'd heard from him. "Yeah," I said. "He came by." She waited for more, but I didn't add anything. I didn't want to say he's the one until I could prove it. Not because she'd doubt me, but because I couldn't take being wrong. 2 days later, a letter came from the bank. Same header, same tone. "Your identity has been verified based on updated address information in your file." I stopped reading after that line. The updated address, with the typo, was mine, the one I'd planted. That was it. Proof. I laughed once quietly, then folded the letter in half. Sarah looked over from the couch. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Just bank nonsense." She didn't ask again. I went into the garage, closed the door, and sat on the workbench with the letter in my hand. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't just reacting, I was ahead of it. I spent the weekend putting everything together. I printed the fence estimate, the email metadata, the letter with the fake address, the notary note, the invoice, and the timeline. I labeled them in a binder, Section 1 through Section 6. Every piece had dates, times, paper clips. It wasn't anger anymore. It was math. Monday morning, I sent the full binder by certified mail to the bank's regional fraud office. Not the branch, not the customer line. I wrote the words fraud evidence, internal review only across the top. Then I waited. Days passed. No call, no letter, no nothing. On the 6th day, I called the bank's main line and gave them the tracking number. The rep said, "Yes, we received something from you, Mr. Carter. It's under review." That was it. No tone, no interest, just a sentence. I said thank you and hung up. A week later, I came home to a voice message. Sarah played it before I got in. It was a man, professional, fast. "This is an update from your financial institution. Your file remains active during verification. Please refrain from external dispute submissions until we finalize the internal review." She looked at me. "What does that mean?" "It means they're stalling," I said. "They sound serious." They always sound serious. That night I sat at the computer and started searching for Rick again. No company site. But I found a post on a construction forum. "Need a crew in Columbus area. Contact RD Building LLC." Same phone number, same last 4 digits on a payment code in one of the replies. He hadn't even changed the number, just the name. I copied the page and added it to the binder. Then I found a small news mention. Local contractor facing complaints over unlicensed work. No photo, no full name. But one line said the company dissolved following irregularities with documentation. Irregularities. That word stuck. The next day, while Sarah was at work, I drove to the branch. The same teller saw me, recognized my face, and tried to smile politely. "Is Mr. Fisher in?" I asked. He was the manager who'd shown me the papers the first time. She checked. "He's in a meeting." "I'll wait." She hesitated, then nodded. "Please have a seat." I sat in the same chair by the fake plant. I could see my reflection in the glass wall. Same posture, same expression. I looked tired in a way that no amount of sleep fixes. After 15 minutes, Fisher came out. He looked surprised but not pleased. "Mr. Carter, I understand your file is being reviewed." "It is," I said, "but I'd like confirmation it's frozen." He gestured for me to sit in the same small office again, the same smell of paper and toner. He logged into his computer, brows furrowed. "It shows pending investigation. That means active?" "It means neither active nor inactive." "That's not a thing." He smiled, the kind that says, "Don't make this harder. I assure you we're handling it." I leaned forward. "You're holding a fake loan tied to my name and property. I sent you proof of forgery, fake notary, reused documents, and a fraudulent address update. You've had it for almost 2 weeks. How is it still pending?" He sighed. "Mr. Carter, we have procedures." "Do your procedures include letting the person who stole my name keep using it?" He stopped smiling. "Please understand." "I understand," I said, standing. "I just wanted to hear you say it." I left before he could answer. 3 days later, I got another letter. Different envelope, same bank logo. Subject: foreclosure warning. Secondary loan. I read it twice, then a third time. They weren't freezing anything. They were moving forward. Sarah found me sitting at the table with the letter. "What now?" she asked quietly. "They're still saying it's real." Her eyes moved to the page, then back to me. "Can they take the house?" "They can try." She nodded, rubbed her thumb against her palm, a small, nervous habit. "Do we need a lawyer?" "I think we need proof," I said. "Real proof. Something even they can't ignore." She didn't answer. Just walked away slowly, like she was keeping her balance on ice. The next morning, I called the county recorder's office again. I asked if they could tell me who submitted the refinance digitally. The clerk said the document came through a remote authorized partner system. I asked for the submission ID. She gave me a string of numbers and letters, long enough to look official, meaningless to me. Then she said, "Funny thing, though. The login used to submit this was flagged last month. Duplicate sessions from 2 IP addresses." "Two?" "One local, one out of state. Someone accessed it from both." "Can you tell where?" She hesitated. "Not officially." "Unofficially?" She paused again, then, "Ohio and Florida." I thanked her and hung up. I didn't live in either. That night, I called my friend Kyle, the one who used to handle IT security for a small firm before he opened a bar. I told him vaguely I needed to trace a digital submission ID and IP logs. He laughed. "You're not hacking a bank, are you?" "No, just trying to see who's pretending to be me." He whistled softly. "That's a new one." I sent him the numbers. 2 hours later, he called back. "You didn't get this from me," he said. "But the Ohio IP you gave me. It's a commercial account, registered under a small LLC named Donnelly Construction Services. That ring a bell?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, it does," he exhaled. "You're in deeper than I thought." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think so." I sat in the dark living room after that call. The house hummed. Fridge, distant car, the world outside doing what it does. Inside, I felt smaller than the noise. Sarah came out, saw me sitting there. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just thinking." She stood for a second, unsure whether to stay or go. Then she said, I hate seeing you like this. I nodded. Me too. By the next morning, I'd made a new plan. I was done waiting for the bank. I'd built a timeline that even a machine couldn't ignore. I opened my binder, flipped to the first page, and started writing in block letters. Day 1, bank visit. Day 2, notice received. Day 3, dispute filed. Day 10, fake notary confirmed. Day 17, contractor reappears. Day 21, bait document used. Day 24, proof. Each line had attachments. By the time I was done, the binder was twice as thick. The air in the house felt heavier. That night, I printed a cover letter to the Regional Compliance Division. I didn't use emotional words, just facts, short sentences, dates, evidence. Before sealing it, I added one more line at the bottom. If this isn't enough to stop the foreclosure, please confirm in writing that your institution is comfortable proceeding with proven falsified documents. I wanted them to feel the weight of that line. I sent it the next morning, certified again. The clerk at the post office smiled. Back again? Yeah, I said. Feels like I never left. 3 days later, a new envelope arrived. Subject, temporary account suspension, under fraud review. I read it 3 times before I let myself believe it. Sarah stood behind me, reading over my shoulder. So they stopped it? She asked. For now. She smiled a little. That's something, I nodded. Yeah, it's something. But I didn't feel done. Suspended wasn't closed. It was just a pause. And pauses have a way of turning back into movement. That night, when Sarah went to bed, I checked my emails again. No new messages. I clicked on the spam folder. There was one. Client verification required. I opened it. It was short. You win 1 round, Carter. Not over yet. No signature, no links, just text. I deleted it and sat back in the chair. The house was quiet again. I whispered to no one. We'll see. The letter said temporary suspension. Not cleared, not resolved, just temporary. I taped it inside the front cover of my binder like a bookmark I didn't trust. Then I went back to work. At the warehouse, nobody knew what I was dealing with. They joked, complained, argued about sports. I moved boxes, signed delivery sheets, said the right words. Inside, I kept replaying that line. Temporary. The thing about a pause is that it doesn't last. Sooner or later, someone presses play. It happened on a Wednesday. A humid morning, gray sky, air that smelled like rain. Sarah called me at work. Her voice was tight. There's another letter, she said. My stomach sank before she even said the rest. They're starting foreclosure again. It says failure to cooperate. I left work early without asking. The letter was on the kitchen table, open like a wound. Following your non-compliance and failure to provide additional identification, the suspension is lifted. Legal proceedings may resume. I read it twice, then a third time. There was a form stapled to the back. Identity reconfirmation required. At the bottom was my fake address, the one with the wrong letter. They'd used the forged version as the corrected one. The trap had closed the wrong way. Sarah stood by the sink, arms crossed. Her voice was low, like she was trying not to break. I thought you said you fixed it. I did. Then why are we getting this? I don't know. She turned her head away. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer. I need to talk to the bank first. Jack, she said quietly. I can't keep doing this. Every week it's another letter. I nodded. I know. She didn't answer. She just walked out of the kitchen into the hallway and shut the bedroom door. That night I sat on the couch with all the papers spread out on the coffee table. It looked like a crime scene, except the crime was invisible. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old calls. Rick's number was still there. I saved it as X so I wouldn't have to see his name. I thought about calling him, asking why. But what do you say to a man who stole your name? Instead, I called the bank's main line again. The rep asked for my account number. I gave it. After a minute, she said, "Mr. Carter, we show 2 files under your name. One is closed, one is active." 2 files? Yes, the closed one was marked fraudulent. The active one was resubmitted with new verification. By who? By you, according to the record. I felt my chest tighten. Can you send me that document? I'm sorry, that's restricted. I'm the person in the document. I understand, but it's under investigation. I laughed. Short, sharp. Investigation by who? She hesitated. Our compliance division. Can I speak to them? They don't take direct calls. I said thank you and hung up before I said something worse. Later that night, I checked my email. Nothing from the bank, nothing from anyone. Then I looked at the spam folder. There was one message from an address I didn't know. Subject: you should stop. No text, no signature, just one photo attached. It was my house, taken from the street, same mailbox, same maple tree. I stared at it until my hands started to shake. Then I deleted it. Sarah was asleep. I didn't wake her. I just sat there in the glow of the screen and tried to breathe slow. The next morning, I bought a cheap security camera online, the kind you mount near the porch light. I installed it before work. The screwdriver slipped twice. I tightened the last screw, wiped my hands, and looked at the house. It looked smaller now. At lunch, I got a text from an unknown number. Still trying? No name, no punctuation. I deleted it without replying. For a few days, nothing happened. Then a certified letter arrived, thick envelope, heavy seal, the kind that makes your hands sweat before you open it. It was from the bank's legal department. Your recent submissions contain altered information inconsistent with verified data. As such, your dispute is considered invalid. Continued interference may result in civil penalties. Altered information. They meant the trap document, the one with the typo. The very proof I'd used against Rick was now the reason they called me a fraud. I felt something give inside me, not panic, not anger. Just a kind of hollow quiet, like when you hear bad news twice and realize it's real. I went out to the porch and sat on the steps. Sarah came home, saw the letter in my hand, and didn't even ask. She just sat next to me. The silence said everything. That weekend, I drove to the local police station. The officer at the front desk listened, nodded, asked for papers. I gave him the binder. He flipped through it page by page for maybe 5 minutes. Then he looked at me and said, "Sir, this sounds like a civil issue. You'll need to contact an attorney." I asked, "So if someone signs my name, steals my ID, and takes a loan on my house, that's not criminal?" He shrugged. "It's complicated. Happens all the time." "Then what do you do?" He sighed. "Mostly paperwork." I took the binder back. It felt heavier than before. When I walked out, the automatic doors opened too slow, like the air didn't want me to leave. I called 3 lawyers that week. 2 didn't call back. One said he could take the case for a retainer I couldn't afford. At night, Sarah barely spoke. She'd go to bed early, close the door, leave the TV on mute. I didn't blame her. I was getting tired of hearing myself say the same words too. Then out of nowhere, the phone rang. It was a man named Frank Dalton, investigator for the bank's internal audit. He said he wanted to verify some dates. His tone was professional, almost too friendly. "I'm just cleaning up some inconsistencies," he said. "Which ones?" He listed 3, the day I filed my dispute, the day I sent my binder, and the day the second submission appeared. I answered everything clearly. He said, "Great, appreciate your time." Before hanging up, he added, "If you have any extra documents, feel free to send them. We'll make sure they don't get misplaced." Something in his voice made me pause. Too casual, too confident, like he already knew where every piece of paper was. I hung up and wrote his name on a sticky note. Frank Dalton, audit. That night I called Kyle again. "Can you check one more thing for me?" I asked. "Depends," he said. "You still not committing felonies?" "Not yet." I gave him the email address from Rick's quote, the one he'd used to send the fence estimate. 2 hours later, Kyle texted back. "That address links to an old domain account under Donnelly Construction Services. Guess who the recovery contact is?" "Frank Dalton, the bank investigator." My hand tightened around the phone. I read the text 3 times. The man who was supposed to be reviewing my case was connected to Rick's old company. I sat there, staring at the screen, and everything clicked. The fake loan, the old ID scan, the reused document, the stalled investigation, the threat calls. It was all one loop, a small ring of people who used old client files, pushed fake refinances, and buried anyone who noticed. I was just the unlucky one who looked too closely. I didn't sleep that night. At 3 in the morning, I went to the kitchen, turned on the light, and opened the binder again. I took out every page that mentioned Frank Dalton or Compliance Division and started building a second binder, one just for him. Every email, every date, every phone record. By dawn, my table was covered in papers and cold coffee. Sarah came in, still half asleep. "What are you doing?" "Finishing it." "Finishing what?" "All of it." She looked at the piles of paper. "You're scaring me." I looked up at her. "They think I'm going to stop. I'm not." That morning, I drove downtown to the regional bank office. No appointment, no warning. The lobby was cold, polished, full of glass and suits. I walked up to the front desk and said I wanted to speak with Corporate Fraud Investigations. The receptionist smiled politely. "Do you have a contact name?" "Frank Dalton." She typed something, then frowned. "I'm sorry, there's no one by that name in this department." "You sure?" She nodded. "Positive. We don't have any employee under that name." For a moment, I just stood there. Then I said, "Thanks," and walked out. In the parking lot, I sat in the car and let it sink in. Frank Dalton didn't exist, not officially. He was a ghost between the systems, the bridge between the bank and the scam. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Same face, same tired eyes, but something new underneath. Focus. They wanted me confused. I wasn't anymore. That night, I backed up everything. Scanned pages, photos, emails, onto a USB drive. This time, I labeled it myself. Then I opened a new folder on my computer and named it Clean Copy. I made duplicates, renamed files, cross-referenced timestamps. I stayed up past 2, writing a simple note at the top of a document. If you're reading this, it means I've finally found the right person. By morning, I knew what to do next. Not a lawyer, not the police. Someone who couldn't be bribed by a bank or scared by a phone call. I thought of one person, a local reporter. She'd done a piece 2 years ago on a housing scam in the same county. Small but solid work. I found her contact on the station's website and wrote her an email. Subject: Possible mortgage fraud chain. I have documents and evidence showing falsified loans tied to old client records. If you're willing to verify, I'll show you everything. Jack Carter. I hit send. Then I sat back, staring at the monitor. The house was silent. For the first time in weeks, the silence didn't feel like defeat. It felt like a countdown. The reporter wrote back the next afternoon. Her email was short. I can meet tonight, 7, back booth at the diner on Westfield. Bring copies, not originals. She signed it with just her first name, Maya. I packed the second binder, the USB with clean copy and a notepad with dates. I left the originals at home, locked in the file drawer. Sarah watched me. You're sure? No, I said, but I'm done waiting for them to do the right thing. She nodded once. Okay. At 6:50, I pulled into the diner lot. The sky was the color of wet concrete. Neon flickered in the window. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and fries. Maya was already there. Black jacket, hair pulled back, a notebook on the table. She didn't do the small talk. She slid a recorder between us and said, I'm taping. For notes only. If we use anything, you'll see it first. Good, I said. Tell me the story in 10 sentences, she said. I did. Plain. No extra words. Bank. Fake refinance. Old ID scan. Contractor. Notary seal. Trap address. Suspension. Foreclosure again. Ghost investigator. Email link between the two. She didn't blink. Show me. I opened the binder. I didn't rush. I let each page sit. Notary analysis. Email headers, bait document. Bank letter with the typo. The invoice with the 4098. The forum post. The Frank Dalton call log. The domain recovery link tying him to the contractor. She took pictures of every page with her phone. No flash, no comments. Only once did she ask me to hold a page at the top so it laid flat in the booth light. Do you have the audio from your bank calls? She asked. I didn't record. She tapped her pen. Start. From now on, if it's legal here, record anything you initiate. Tell them you are. People speak differently when they know. I can do that, she nodded. And send me the copies tonight. All of it, if you trust me. I looked at her for a long second. This can get ugly. It already is, she said. We sat quiet for a breath. A waitress poured coffee we didn't drink. The neon hummed. Maya slid a card across the table. Use this drive. Wipe yours after. I pocketed it. What's your plan? I don't publish until I have 2 independent verifications, she said. One from a document expert, one from inside the bank. I'll work the second one. How? She gave a small smile. Some people don't like being on the wrong side when the lights come on. She checked her watch. Send me the files by midnight. Tomorrow I'll ask the bank for comment. If they lie, they'll lie on record. We stood. She didn't shake my hand. She just nodded once and left by the side door. I sat for another minute, then went home. At the kitchen table, I copied everything to her drive. Then I formatted mine, empty to the root. I didn't like losing the copy, but I liked knowing there was now more than one place that held my story. At 11:30, I sent the files. At midnight, she wrote back one line. Got them. Sleep. I didn't much. In the morning, Maya texted me. Requesting comment now. Don't respond to new bank contacts until I confirm. At 9, the bank called. A new voice. Mr. Carter, I'm reaching out from the corporate office to discuss an amicable resolution. I'm recording this call, I said. State your name and title. A pause. I'm not authorized to be recorded. Then email me, I said and hung up. 2 minutes later, an email arrived. Corporate domain. Different tone. They wanted a meeting to resolve outstanding concerns, in person, at the regional office. Maya texted again. They know I'm sniffing. Don't meet yet. Make them put words on paper. I wrote back. Understood. At lunch, I set the phone face down and ate a sandwich in the car. The sun was too bright. I missed the gray. I thought about the ghost man, the one who called himself Frank Dalton. I didn't know if he worked at the bank, near it, next to it, or in its shadow. I only knew he used the bank's name like a shield. I wrote his name again on a sticky note and stuck it to the dash. Frank. No last name if you looked from far away. Just a first name with too much weight. Maya called at 3. They gave me a statement, she said. Short. We take identity fraud seriously and are reviewing the matter. That's nothing. It's something, she said. It's them acknowledging they see me. Did you ask about Dalton? She exhaled through her teeth. They claim no knowledge of anyone by that name. I need more. I told her about the receptionist. She was quiet then. Okay. So either he's third party or he's a name on a door that doesn't exist. Can you bait him? How? Email him from your burner. CC the same contact he used as a recovery on the contractor's domain. Ask a question only he could answer. Make the subject line boring but urgent. What question? She thought. Ask which verification step you failed. Use those words, and put a wrong detail only he'd correct. I wrote it down. If he replies, you'll get headers. Exactly, she said. We trace the route. I sent the email at 3:22 p.m. Subject: verification step I failed. Body: hi Frank. I got the notice about failed address match on Westfield. Can you tell me what document you need so I don't cause another delay? Jack, I spelled the fake street the wrong fake way. Westfield with the E and I flipped. I CC'd the recovery contact from the contractor's domain. 5 minutes later, a reply. Jack, we need a color copy of your driver's license and a utility bill to confirm Westfield. Upload to the same portal. Don't send to me. F. No signature line, no disclaimer, just a letter and a period. I forwarded it to Maya. She wrote, got it. Tracing. By evening she called. Her voice had a charge to it now. 2 hops, she said. First through a mid-level mail server that the bank uses. Second through a private relay attached to a different LLC. Guess the name? Donnelly. Close, she said. Group, newer, bare bones, registered to a mailbox store. The billing contact email is the same recovery address. So he's using a bank relay? Or he's piggybacking off someone who can pass as one, she said. Either way, I can prove the reply didn't come from a proper corporate account. Is that enough? It's enough to publish a question, she said, and enough to make them sweat. She paused. You ready for that? I've been ready. Okay, I'm going to do something soft first. A 30-second spot on the evening news. Not you, not names, just the angle. Homeowner finds forged refinance, questions bank process, third-party ghost involved. See if they blink. I'll watch, I said. Don't, she said. Stay off the comments. They'll just make you mad. She hung up. The spot ran at 6. Sarah watched it. I didn't. When it ended, she came into the kitchen. They're going to pay attention now. Maybe. She took my hand. You look taller, she said and tried to smile. I didn't. But I felt it. A small shift in weight, like the floor wasn't tilting under me anymore. The next morning, the bank emailed again. This time, the tone was different. Mr. Carter, we are placing all actions on hold for 30 days while we complete an internal audit. We request no further public discussion during this period. Corporate Resolution Team. Maya texted. They blinked. Keep everything. Don't agree to silence. I replied to the bank. All communication in writing. I won't attend meetings without my own record. Please confirm the second loan is non-collectible during your hold. 2 hours later, they confirmed, non-collectible for 30 days. I printed the email and put it in the binder. I went to the garage and just stood there for a minute. The smell of oil and old wood helped. Tools hung in their places. The bench had circles from cups I forgot to wipe. Normal things. I needed normal. Maya called that afternoon. I got a real source, she said. Mid-level compliance. They don't want to be named, but they gave me 3 sentences. One of them matters. What is it? We have encountered falsified notary seals in remote submissions and are reviewing vendor access. Vendor, I said. So a contractor. Or anyone who gets credentialed, she said. That word covers a lot. What now? I'm writing, she said, short, tight. We publish online first. If they sue, we show receipts. When? Tonight, she said. If you're good with me using your first name only. Use my last name, I said. I'm not hiding. She was quiet a second. Okay. She hung up. I told Sarah. She sat on the couch, folded one leg under her, and said, "Do it." You sure? You didn't do anything wrong, she said. Let them look us in the eye. I nodded. Okay. I went to the kitchen and made coffee I didn't drink. The story went up at 9. I read it once, slow. It didn't have heat. It didn't accuse. It laid out steps, dates, and the pattern. It asked 2 questions in bold. Who is the Frank contacting homeowners? How are remote vendors accessing loan systems with insufficient oversight? It used the phrase, chain of falsified refinances. Underneath there was a line from the bank. We're reviewing. And a line from the county clerk. Digital systems have improved access but also introduced vulnerabilities. In the last paragraph, Maya wrote, Carter did not want revenge. He wanted quiet. He still does. I closed the page and leaned back. The house felt different again, like I had opened a window. Sarah came to the doorway. Well? It's good, I said. Good bad? Good good. She came over and rested her chin on my shoulder. We didn't say anything else. In the morning, the calls started. Not many. 2 reporters I didn't know. One man who said he'd had something similar happen. A woman with a question about that notary thing. I didn't answer the ones I couldn't handle. I sent the others to Maya. At noon, an email came from a new bank address. General Counsel. Mr. Carter. We have concluded that your secondary loan file contains material irregularities and was submitted using unauthorized credentials. We are rescinding the loan, removing related entries from your records, and ceasing all collection activity. You will receive written confirmation within 48 hours. We appreciate your patience. No apology. No name for the thing they did. But the words I needed: rescinding, ceasing, removing. I forwarded it to Maya. She replied with a single word: print. I printed 2 copies, one for the binder, one to tape on the inside of the cabinet door where we keep the cereal next to the spare keys. I wanted to see it when I made coffee. I wanted to see it when I reached for a bowl. Sarah read it twice. The tension in her shoulders dropped half an inch. Is that it? Not yet, I said. Almost. 2 days later, a different letter. From State Licensing Bureau. They'd received a referral. They were reviewing a complaint regarding remote vendor misuse. They asked for a statement. I sent everything. 3 days later, they acknowledged receipt and assigned a case number. The following week, Maya sent me a link. A notice on the state site. License suspended Donnelly Construction Services, pending investigation. I read it quietly. I didn't send it to anyone. I just opened the garage door and stood on the driveway, feeling the air, the space, the small sounds of the street. A neighbor waved. I waved back. That night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A voice I recognized, but softer now. You did this. Frank, I said. Silence. Then, it was just money. No, I said. It was my name. He exhaled. No tough tone. No confidence. Just air moving out of a tired man. You think you won? He said. No, I said. I think I stopped you from using me. That's enough. He didn't answer. He hung up without a click, like the line just let go. I stood in the kitchen with the phone in my hand. Sarah watched me from the hall. I nodded once. She didn't ask who it was. We went to bed and slept without waking up. In the days after, small things happened. A certified letter confirming the rescission, a credit report update removing the loan, a polite email offering assistance in restoring standing, which I ignored. A notice from the county recorder correcting the file. A second email from the licensing bureau saying they had referred parts of the case to another office. They didn't say which. They didn't have to. Maya published a follow-up. Short, a paragraph. Bank rescinds fraudulent loan. State suspends vendor license. Investigation continues. No names beyond mine. No victory lap. Just closure lines anyone could read and remember. I sent her a thank you. She replied with a single emoji. Not a smile. Not a fire. The one that looks like a check mark. One evening I took the binder out for the last time. I added the final letters. Then I closed it, put a piece of blue painter's tape on the spine and wrote "Done" with a black marker. I slid it into the cabinet behind the cookbooks we never use. Sarah came in holding 2 mugs. She handed me one. "What now?" she asked. "We fixed the porch brackets," I said. "I drilled them wrong." She laughed. Not loud, just a normal laugh. "Okay." We went outside. The light had that low-time warmth. The maple threw shadows like fingers. I measured twice, marked the wood, drilled slow. The screws went in clean. When I finished, I sat on the steps and looked at the yard. Sarah sat next to me, mug in her hands, knees close to mine. "You didn't yell," she said, "not once." "I wanted to," I said. "Me too," she said. We watched a car pass, a kid on a bike, the neighbor's dog deciding which patch of grass to own. Quiet things, real things. Later that night, an email arrived from someone I didn't know. A short note. "Saw the story, same happened to my brother. He didn't have proof. Thanks for showing how to keep records." I didn't write back. I didn't know what to say. I just reread the line, "How to keep records," and felt a small weight shift again. I cleaned the table, wiped the coffee rings, put the magnifying glass back in the drawer. I turned off the kitchen light and stood in the dark for a second. The house felt solid, like it remembered me. Like it had put my name back on the door. The weeks after felt strange. No letters, no calls. Silence had a weight I wasn't used to. Every few days I'd check the mailbox anyway. Bills, coupons, nothing with a logo that made my stomach knot. I'd stand there longer than I needed just to be sure. Inside, the house had settled back into its normal sounds. Pipes clicking, the fridge hum, nothing watching. Sarah started sleeping through the night again. I did too, mostly. Sometimes I'd wake at 3 expecting something to be wrong. It never was. On Saturdays, I worked in the garage, fixed the loose shelf, sharpened the lawnmower blade. Routine jobs, hands busy, mind empty. One morning, the neighbor Tom wandered over with a coffee. He leaned on the fence. "Heard you were in the paper," he said. "Yeah, briefly." He nodded, sipped. "Glad it worked out." "Me too." That was the whole talk. It felt good. Nothing to explain, nothing to hide. A month later, an envelope came from the State Bureau. Final notice. Case closed. Violations confirmed. Parties barred from licensed work for 5 years. 2 sentences, black ink. No signatures, just printed names. I read it once, folded it, and slid it into the binder marked "Done." Then I pushed the binder to the back of the shelf and shut the door. Life went on the way it always should have. Work, traffic, grocery lists, the kind of days you forget on purpose. Every so often I'd catch myself watching people sign things, delivery slips, receipts, and feel a small chill. It passed. But I never signed anything without reading every line again. In early autumn, I repainted the porch. The same maple dropped its first leaves, yellow on the steps. I left one there overnight. It dried flat against the wood like a seal. Sarah came out with 2 coffees. "You finally look done," she said. "I think I am," she smiled. "You going to keep that folder forever?" "Probably," I said. "Someone has to remember what happened." She leaned on the rail beside me. "Not to you?" "No, I said, for when someone else needs to know how. We watched the street. A truck passed. A dog barked once and stopped. The world didn't owe me anything, but it had stopped taking. Later that evening, I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where it started. The surface had new scratches from months of papers, but the wood still held its shape. I ran my finger along the edge, thinking about how easily things can be copied and how hard they are to make real again. I opened the drawer, saw the magnifying glass, left it there. I wouldn't need it anymore. Before turning off the light, I looked once at the letter taped inside the cabinet. Rescinded. The ink had started to fade at the edges. I smiled a little. Some stories end loud, with gavel sounds or headlines. Mine ended with quiet, the kind you notice only because it's finally safe to breathe in it. Sometimes late at night, I still think about that signature, how perfect it looked, how close it came to taking everything. And I tell myself the same thing, soft, before sleep. The hardest part isn't fighting the system, it's staying calm enough to prove you were never part of it. Then I turn off the light and the house holds steady around me.